Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It is so good to be back. It is so good to see everyone. Hello. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about today, especially in the world of PlayStation, right? We got some really big PlayStation news really just a couple days ago via Herman Holst in the PlayStation blog. Whole bunch of stuff got announced there, right? We found out that God of War has been delayed to 2022. I think we all expected that, to be honest. I don't think that comes to a shock to anyone, but maybe more surprisingly, we learned that the next God of War and Gran Turismo 7 are going to be cross-generation games. That's right. Horizon Forbidden West isn't the last of these big, giant AAA first-party studios games to be cross-gen. We're also going to see God of War on the PlayStation 4 and Gran Turismo 7, and that has generated some huge discussion online, a lot of different takes in terms of what this means, if this is good, if this is bad. We can break it all down here and go over it, right? So tons of news from PlayStation. We got the E3 2021 schedule. It is now out, so we know when these conferences and when these premieres are going to be, so we can talk about what we're looking forward to at each one of these shows, what maybe some of these announcements are going to be, etc. If this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, basically the way this works, it's a show 100% driven by you, right? Your comments, your questions are really what make up this show. So two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there is going to be the free method. It works exactly how it sounds. You drop your question down into chat and I get to as many of those free ones as I possibly can over the next hour to hour and a half. However, if you want to 100% guarantee that you get your question answered, the way to do that is going to be the super chat option. Now, to be clear, don't feel obligated, don't feel pressured to donate in super chat. However, those questions do get priority. So if you want a 100% guarantee I get to it, then the super chat option is there. A couple housekeeping notes really quick before I dive into your comments and questions. First of all, I was on the XNC Xbox News podcast over on Colt Eastwood's channel. If you haven't gotten a chance to check that out yet, I had a great time talking to Colt and Danny Pena. Last I checked, it was over 30,000 views. It had great feedback. So thanks anyone that went and watched me appear on that podcast there. And if you haven't yet, we have a great conversation about all things Xbox and actually a lot of PlayStation talk too, just because there's been so much PlayStation news in the news cycle lately. So shout out to Colt. Thanks for having me on. Shout out to Danny. And the only other housekeeping note really quick is I am leaving on vacation soon. That's right. My vacation lines up exactly when E3 week is. So next Friday, literally a week from today, I'm leaving to go to the beach. So we are going to have a live chat next week. It's probably going to be Wednesday. I will let you know there's just no way I can do live reactions to the conferences. I would love to. Y'all know that, but I literally can't, right? I'm going to be on the beach. I'm going to try and do some YouTube content while I'm down there. I can't promise that I'll be able to do much, but I'm going to try. However, I will be super active on Twitter. So you'll still be able to get a hold of me and talk to me on Twitter. Just next week, we'll have a live chat Wednesday, but the week after that, there may be no live chat, everyone. All right, let's get rocking. Let's get rolling. And then one other shout out really quick. Sorry. There's been a nice boost of subscribers again recently in the last week. So thanks a lot. I'm sure a big part of that was due to me appearing on Colt's podcast. But thanks everyone. Thanks. We're so close to 3,000 now. I think we're only off by like 30 subscribers. So it's still possible we get to 3,000 by E3. It's going to be close. Okay, well, let me dive in. We already got a bunch of questions in here. Let's get rocking. Okay, well, let's hit these super chats first. I got Plastic Hearts Podcast with a 10. Thank you so much, Plastic Hearts Podcast. Always in these chats, always so supportive. Great to see you. Did Cory Barlog's tweet asking if games matter more than hardware indicate that he's fine with developing God of War 2 on PS4? I want these games to reach full potential, but if devs are cool with it, then I'm cool. Plastic Hearts, it appears that way. He also tweeted out another tweet last night that also seems to reflect that the decision to put this on PS4 seems to lie with Cory. So We know he was the director. He was the lead on God of War 2018. He made that game a gigantic success, both commercially as well as critically. Of course, not just him, Sony Santa Monica at large. But we know like his vision was kind of what rejuvenated the God of War franchise. So clearly he's going to have a lot of pull. He also made a tweet last night basically defending Alana Pierce because, she's been getting some hate, which is ridiculous, first of all. But, people are attacking devs. This seems to be always the case when games get delayed or when people get bad news they don't want. They lash out at developers. And he made a tweet basically defending her. And he said the decision to put the game on PS4, PS5 was his. So it does seem to be Plastic Hearts that Corey at least was heavily involved with the decision to make this next God of War on PlayStation 4. Now, there's going to be a ton of different takes on this whole cross-gen thing. And to be honest, I completely see both sides here in terms of I don't get the people that are being rude and disrespectful to developers. That, you guys know me. I'm never going to be okay with that. On the flip side, I am sympathetic to the idea that some people want to see these games only on PlayStation 5 because the reality is you can push things a little bit further probably whenever you're only developing for next generation hardware. There are things you can do with the SSD, for example, that you're just not going to be able to do with a regular hard drive, right? That was part of the big selling point of the PlayStation 5. You saw Mark Cerny come out and talk all about how the SSD is going to allow things that were never possible before. So for people that are disappointed that God of War and Gran Turismo are going to be cross-generation games, I actually am sympathetic and completely understand that argument. I also made a tweet saying that, I think these games are going to be amazing regardless, right? The thing is if you go back and you play some of those incredible PlayStation 4 AAA games, right? You play The Last of Us Part 2, regardless of how you feel about the story. You play Horizon Zero Dawn. You play God of War 2018. You play Spider-Man, right? These games are simply outstanding, okay? So I am very, very, very confident that the next God of War, Horizon Forbidden West, and Gran Turismo are going to be extremely high quality games. So am I sympathetic to the idea that, hey, I wish these games were only going to be on PS5? For sure. On the flip side, though, I don't think that these games are suddenly going to be terrible or suddenly be bad just because they're also going to be on PlayStation 4, right? We know that there's a massive install base on that PS4, and I'm sure there's going to be more questions about how I feel the sales breakdown is going to lie between these platforms, right? So I won't go super in depth on that in case somebody has a question, but it's massive, right? It's going to be close to 120 million plus by the time some of these games come out. So on Sony's perspective, I get why they're not going to just abandon those that platform, right? Because it is so huge. However, on the flip side, this is a bit new for Sony, right? Sony usually doesn't have a long cross-generation period, especially as long as we're looking now, right? Games well into 2022 are still going to be cross-gen. So there's a lot to unpack here. In terms of your direct statement, in terms of Cory Barlog and the devs being okay with working on PS4 still, I think that makes sense, right? Keep in mind, they've been developing on these platforms for so long. If you're first party, especially, you're going to have that development pipeline down to a science, right? If you're Sony Santa Monica, if you're Naughty Dog, if you're et cetera, you've worked on the PS4 so extensively that it probably feels very like home to still make a game on that console. So I'm assuming that probably most first-party devs are still completely fine with working on PS4. Will it hamper their vision slightly? It is possible depending on what you're trying to do. For example, we know Insomniac has flat out stated that Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart just would not be possible on the PS4, right? So if you're using that SSD and certain technology in ways that the PS4 can't handle, it could hold back your vision. However, we don't really know that it's going to hold back too much, at least in terms of the vision of the next God of War or Horizon, right? We don't know exactly what their plans are for those games. So again, am I sympathetic to people that want these games only on PS5? Absolutely. I don't think you're wrong to think that. On the other side, though, these games are still going to be amazing. Thank you for the super chat. Timmer72299 with a 2 super chat. What is up, Timmer? Saying no question today. Just wanted to show my support. Thank you, Timmer. You're in every chat. You've been in every chat forever. And thank you for the support, as always, in the super chats, Timber. Keep rocking over on Twitter. Benji with a 10 super chat. What is up, Benji? So good to see you. Hi, Benji. VGC has reported God of War Ragnarok and Horizon 2 were cross-gen from the start. This means Sony lied with the "we believe in generation" statement. It seems only GT7 was next-gen bound. Thoughts? So this is interesting, okay? And I even made a tweet about this. Listen, Sony's messaging to me really, honestly, over the last year, like, hasn't been great, okay? Okay. Here's the thing. Did they straight up lie about God of War and Horizon? No. Because, and I get where you're going, Benji, and don't worry, like I mentioned in my tweet, I'm not going to completely let Sony off the hook here. But keep in mind, when Horizon Forbidden West and God of War were originally announced, they never outright stated that those games would not appear on PS4. However, it is also absolutely true that Sony, in the way they announced those games, kind of implied that they may only be on PS5, right? Now, that was never outright stated, so you can't flat out say it's a lie. Gran Turismo 7, on the other hand, is a bit of a weird scenario because they just flat out said that that game was only on PlayStation 5. Now, VGC's report claims, and this actually does make a bit sense to me, that Gran Turismo was going to be only PS5, and that has recently changed. Now, I believe that strictly because, to me, it's the only thing that makes sense, right? Because otherwise, that would have been a flat-out lie, right? If, when they were putting in that trailer, Gran Turismo 7, PlayStation 5 exclusive, if the plan back then was, hey, this game's going to be on PS4 as well, that's not just, marketing in a way to make something look like something. That would literally be a lie. So I believe VGC's report there, that was, at the time that trailer came out, the plan was that game's only PS5, it's not going to be on PS4, and that changed. I'm inclined to believe that. Now, Sony's messaging in general has been a bit all over the place, really, for a long time. You go back and you look at how they talked about backwards compatibility. It ended up being just fine, right? Whenever we got backwards compatibility on the PS5, it essentially works with like basically all PS4 games. But early on, some of that messaging was a bit confusing, right? Same thing we're seeing here with God of War and Horizon. We've known Horizon's cross-gen now for a while, but when that was very first announced, people didn't really know, right? Again, it was somewhat implied in things like "we believe in generations," etc., that, more of these games would be PS5 only. It's also worth noting, though, that they have had multiple games now that are only on PS5, right? You've had Demon's Souls, you've had Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart coming up, we had Returnal, so, it's weird, right? I'm not letting Sony off the hook. It's not great messaging. Here's the thing. I think they should be much, much clearer. And there's no doubt about it that Xbox in particular received major backlash really last year when they talked about cross-generation. And Sony did not. And Sony avoided a lot of that. Now, that bill is coming due now, right? You are seeing people get really heated in social media over this now. So it has caught up to them in a way. However, really, to be perfectly honest with y'all, Sony's strategy for cross-gen looks to be the exact same as Microsoft's for the most part. Now, Sony has had more games, there's no doubt about it. They've had more PS5 only games than Xbox has had cross-generation games, right? We all know Xbox's output lately has been very, very low and very slow. So they are, a little bit more ahead of Xbox in terms of a next-gen only experience. But, look at the games. Most of their biggest titles are cross-gen, right? Their flagship giant franchises. Spider-Man Miles Morales was cross-gen. God of War, cross-gen. Horizon, cross-gen. Gran Turismo, cross-gen. These are like literally the biggest brands PlayStation has, and they're making them cross-gen, like what Microsoft's doing with Halo and presumably Forza Horizon 5. So, my only thing, I just wish Sony was a lot more clear about this, right? I wish they were a lot more upfront about this. I'm not going to go all out and say they completely lied to people. I get people being frustrated about it. However, yeah, I think they need to be a lot clearer in their communication. Hopefully, this is a step in the right direction. Them coming out and clarifying now that these games are cross-gen. But yeah, they need to be a lot more clearer. A lot more clear. Thank you for that super chat, Benji. Killian Butler with a 10 super chat. Hey Benji, what do you think Halo Infinite needs to do to recapture the glory days of the franchise? Is it enough for the game to just appeal to hardcore Halo fans? What if the game doesn't deliver? Yeah, it's a hot button topic, Killian. Thank you for the super chat, first of all. And yeah, Halo Infinite is one of those games that, boy, I feel like this is a bit do or die for 343, right? And what I mean is, if Halo Infinite doesn't meet expectations, doesn't deliver, do I think Microsoft's going to just shutter 343? No, right? Halo is still, even if Infinite has issues, way too important of a brand for Xbox. 343 is a massive studio, so you're not going to just close that, right? They have a huge amount of employees. But what I mean by it's a bit do or die, if Infinite comes out and it is not received well, right? Whether that's critically, whether that's commercially, whether that's with fans, new fans, hardcore fans, if the game just doesn't deliver, I believe you're going to see massive restructuring within 343. I mean, massively. We know Halo 5 was met very, very mixed. Infinite has had an incredibly long development cycle. They can't miss, right? Put it this way, if they do, you're going to see some people fired probably. And I hate to see that, right? I never want to root for people to lose their jobs or anything like that. But you have to think from Microsoft's perspective. 343 has been given the biggest IP that Xbox has ever had. And if Infinite were to miss, Halo 5, I believe, is largely considered a miss, okay? I know that a lot of people liked the multiplayer, but that game it didn't hit the way, like, let's say a Halo 3 hit back in the day, right? So you will see some major repercussions on 343 if this happens. Again, does that mean Halo will die? No. Does that mean 343 is going to be closed? No. But you're going to see Microsoft, I think, do some restructuring there. On the flip side, what do they need to do? It appears from some of the stuff that's getting thrown around there, I think Grubb was talking about this, that the main goal with this game is to appeal to hardcore Halo fans, right? Because I feel like Microsoft believes that's the people that they have left behind in a lot of ways, right? The people that loved Halo 3, that loved Halo 2, they didn't click the same way with 4 and 5. So I get it from that perspective. The main thing that the game needs to do, frankly, and I know this sounds basic, it just needs to be good, okay? It just needs to be a really, really good game. Do I feel like they need to reinvent the wheel? No. Master Chief Collection has had a massive turnaround. In fact, it's incredibly popular. It performs very, very well on Game Pass. It does really, really well, right? So we see that there's still a lot of love for Halo. I think that campaign needs to be really good. That might sound weird because keep in mind, like most first-person shooters, the campaign is seen as sort of like extra. Halo is one of those weird scenarios where really like there are just as many people that love and care about Halo's campaign and story as there are people that love its multiplayer. It's one of the rare first-person shooters that has that split, right? In fact, I think you've even seen 343 talk about it, that their player base is like 50-50. Like there's a ton of people that play Halo for the campaign, and there's a ton of people that play Halo for the multiplayer. So that campaign needs to be really good because the story of Halo is important to many, many people, and then the multiplayer needs to also be very solid. I think they need to make Halo Halo, right? And I don't think they need to reinvent the wheel. I think they need to make a great Halo experience. Of course, update it. Of course, evolve it. But I also don't think they need to make the game just a completely different game. Here's the thing. Call of Duty is out there. Apex Legends is out there. There is a new Battlefield coming. Like, there are so many first-person shooters on the market that are nothing like Halo. I think it would be a mistake to try to chase trends and not make a Halo game. So I do get why they're trying to appeal to the hardcore fans. It's its own franchise, something radically different than what the other first-person shooters on the market offer. So yeah, it's an important one though. It's important. If this game misses, then whew, not great. Plastic Hearts Podcast with the 5 super chat. That's your second one, Plastic Hearts. Thank you so much. Sorry, my allergies are kicking, y'all. I'm fighting it, but they're kicking. Plastic Hearts Podcast with the 5 super chat. With Microsoft's E3 incoming, much of the talk is about Starfield, Halo Infinite, etc. But how do you feel about Hellblade 2? Could steal the show in my opinion. Plastic Hearts, I completely agree with you, but it sounds like Hellblade 2 is not there. Or if it is there, it sounds like it's going to be in a very small way. So maybe some sort of like trailer, like small trailer, some sort of like, what's the word for it? Like almost like a video doc type thing, like a short thing just to show the development progress. It does not sound, Plastic Hearts, like there's going to be some sort of big Hellblade 2 blowout. I agree with you. I feel like it is that type of game that could be very impressive, especially because it's not the sort of game that Microsoft Studios has been making in the past, right? It's that third person, strong story focused, cinematic type game, right? The things that really Sony is super known for. Microsoft doesn't, at least in the past, make many games like this. So that would make it super stand out, I think, if it was a big showing here. But Plastic Hearts, I'm not expecting it to be. So do I feel like it's going to steal the show? No, just because I think we're not going to see enough of it. We might see a little snippet, but not a lot. So yeah, Halo Infinite, Starfield are probably going to be the standouts. Yeah, I mean, more than likely, those are going to be the games that get the most attention. So I hope to see something here, Plastic Hearts. I'm just not expecting it, right? Just a small way. KY Han here with a 5 super chat. What's interesting to me is that this cross-gen period for Forbidden West and Ragnarok tells me their internal PS5 production estimates are bad. Well, KY, here's the weird thing. If you mean that their estimate is bad in terms of like they're massively over forecasting internally, that is possible. However, we do know that their actual production isn't bad in the grand scheme of things, right? PlayStation 5 is still, as of last month, the fastest selling console at launch of all time, right? Within that first now however many months, I'd have to do the math off the top of my head and I don't feel like doing it. It still is the fastest selling platform ever in the US. We also know that it is still outpacing PlayStation 4 launch aligned, right? So they're actually selling a ton of units. However, KY, you could be correct that internally, Sony is forecasting way, way more, or were forecasting way, way bigger than where we're actually even at. So it is possible that their production vastly overestimated things. We don't really know, right? That information's not public. Even in their upcoming forecast, sorry, my dog's going nuts, but he'll stop in a minute. Even in their upcoming forecast, they're projecting it still to do incredibly well, right? But we don't have like an exact unit metric, so we don't really know how big they're forecasting. So it could be that they're massively over forecasting internally. However, like I said, they're still selling a freaking ton of consoles, like a ton. I know it doesn't seem like it because they're impossible to find, but that's because they sell out immediately. Ralph Mustard with the 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Ralph, saying, I have no question. I am here for the tank top. Yes, the tank tops are back, right? They're back. We are in summer season now here where I'm at. So the tanks have returned. They are back and they will be back throughout most of the summer. I love tank tops, right? It's like my favorite type of shirt. All right, the Deadly 8. Hello there, do you think Insomniac Spider-Man 2 will be a cross-gen title if it gets released next year? Ooh, this is a great question. In fact, I was wondering this myself after seeing Gran Turismo 7 get announced as cross-gen. My thought process is Deadly 8. If it's next year, it probably is. It probably is, because we already have two cross-gen flagship games that are 2022 that we know are cross-gen. God of War and Gran Turismo. So if this is next year, I would say there's a good chance. Now, if it's 2023, no. I really don't think Sony's going to still be doing cross-gen in 2023. Now, I would have thought they weren't doing much cross-gen in 2022 either. So maybe I'm wrong there. But next year, I would say good chance that it is cross-gen. 2023, no, though. If it's 2023, I just can't see it. I can't see them doing cross-gen that long. Miles Morales. Sorry, this is gross, y'all. My allergies are just kicking. When do you think the next PlayStation event will take place? July? ? I don't think it's going to be June. I know that there is a like an insider apparently on Reset Era that was claiming that there's going to be an event this month, and they could be right. I have quite literally zero inside information on when that's going to be. Apparently this person was vetted, and they say that there's going to be a June event. I'm just speaking as an outsider. I don't think there will be. I don't see why they would have shown Horizon on its own and then also done this big PlayStation blog announcement, delaying games, announcing cross-gen games, doing this huge interview with Herman Hulst, plus giving Horizon, like I mentioned, its own platform. I don't think you would see all of that if there was a plan to do a show in June currently. Maybe there was, but at least as of right now. So I don't think so. If Sony does announce a June event, I will be pleasantly surprised, but as of now, I don't think it's going to happen. July is a possibility. I could also even see it pushed as late as August. I think we will hear something from Sony this summer. They have way too many projects in the works to just not talk at all, in my opinion, right? I mean, they got to show some stuff, right? We have never seen God of War. And most of those games that got announced during the original PlayStation 5 showcase, we've seen like no updates on, right? We finally got one on Horizon, but a lot of that other stuff we haven't heard more on, right? We haven't seen more Gran Turismo, etc. And there's also, of course, going to be new projects they have to announce too. So I suspect we hear something this summer, Miles, but I'm personally not expecting it yet until July or August. I think June is unlikely. Horizon kind of gave me the first idea that, ooh, maybe June's not going to happen. And then once they also did this blog post, then I was like, yeah, it seems very unlikely, right? That's an awful lot of news to just dump right at the beginning of the month if you're also going to have a show. Split End 89. What up, Split End? Best mod in the business. Good friend of mine. Always rocking. Is it true that your guns are bigger than Thor's? Currently, no, Split End. Currently, I am ultra skinny. So I was putting on quite a bit of muscle, honestly. Like as of the beginning of this year, early on, I was getting pretty strong, okay? And then I stopped working out because I got injured. And I've been doing hardcore intermittent fasting, right? So I only eat 8 hours a day in an 8-hour window, and then I don't eat 16 hours a day. So I only allow myself to eat between 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. Outside of that, I don't eat at all. Now, that's not going to be great for muscle growth, right? However, it does keep you exceptionally lean. So my weight and body fat percentage right now is literally the lowest it's been since probably I graduated high school. I'm very shredded right now, but I'm not big. So my actual guns, no. I'm hopefully going to start lifting again in the next, I still want a few things to heal up. So probably towards the end of the summer, I'm going to get back on a lifting regimen. But right now, I still have a little bit of muscle, but I'm more just very, very, very lean. King Lizard. Don't you think people are overreacting over cross-gen? To a degree, yes. We've had cross-gen games like Miles Morales, and it ran great. It had no compromises. Developers know what they're doing with cross-gen right. King Lizard, to a degree, yes, I think so. I think the main reason Sony's getting this much pushback, King Lizard, frankly, is that because of the way they announced this, okay? if they were really transparent from the beginning about this, right, like Microsoft was, like if they had said from the get-go, like literally when they announced God of War, when they announced Horizon, not later, like when they were announced, if they said, hey, these games are on PlayStation 5 and they're on PlayStation 4, you would have seen some people kind of upset. That's going to happen no matter what, right? There is a section of people that want these games to be PS5 only. That would have always happened. Microsoft got pushed back, right? But the reason I think you're seeing people get so upset is that Sony just was not clear enough about this messaging. So some people feel that they were misled. So that's causing people to get very upset. So, you know, in terms of the games themselves, like I mentioned off the top, I'm still expecting these games to be awesome. I'm still expecting these games to be good. Sony just, you know, a lot of the reaction is coming specifically because of that. I don't think people would have been near upset if they always knew from day one when they saw those announcement trailers that these were cross-gen games. I think that's really where most of this is coming from. Because remember, keep in mind, y'all, go back to last year. Microsoft took heat when they announced cross-gen. Like seriously, you can go through Twitter. You even saw major publications writing stories about this. I think Kotaku and stuff had pieces on how cross-gen's holding back and Microsoft's making mistakes. Like, y'all, it's easy to forget now because we've known for so long. But Xbox got major heat when they announced it the next year or two, whatever, back then, that games would be cross-gen. So it's really just Sony now feeling what Microsoft felt last year. 2 super chats, 3 super chats. Holy cow. Thank you so much, everybody. Joseki here with a 2 super chat. Shin Megami Tensei 5 leaked for 11/11. High risk, high reward date. Yeah, this is interesting, Joseki. First of all, I thought this game probably wasn't going to be this year. And then second of all, seeing it put right in that holiday madness, that is a bold move, okay? I agree with you. It's high risk, high reward, right? You are in that holiday season. You're right in there where, you know, there's going to be a ton of attention, like tons of people buying games. On the flip side, though, you're going to be launching next to so many huge games, right? Battlefield's going to be somewhere in there. Halo's going to be somewhere in there. Call of Duty is going to be somewhere in there. There's going to be more than that, right? This is just me, you know, Horizon Forbidden West is probably going to be somewhere in there. Pokemon's in there. So, of course, Shin Megami Tensei 5 is quite a bit of a different game than all of those, which, of course, helps it that it's not overlapping with those. However, you also are in a scenario where there is only so much money to go around, right? It feels like every holiday season we see 1 or 2 games get buried because they get launched just way in the heat of things, right? And there's only so much money. So I think it's kind of okay because, first of all, it's a Switch exclusive, so it's not going to be necessarily competing with some of the multi-platform titles. And also, like I mentioned, it is quite different than those other games. So that also helps it a bit, but it is risky. I mean, anytime you're going to be going up against these massive juggernaut franchises, it's going to be risky. So I'm not going to call it a bomb or anything. In fact, it might do amazing for them. But yeah, just like, yeah, I agree. It's high risk, high reward. I mean, I think it's like a week before Pokemon. So, whew, yeah, that's intense. That's an intense date. Benji with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Benji. That's your second one. Holy cow. Benji, you don't have to do 2 10s. Holy cow. Benji, the PS4 didn't have cross-gen. Why on PS5? This is a good question. Because of the install base. What would be the acceptable PS5 install base for Sony for full next gen? Should we expect Grand Theft Auto 6 to be cross-gen? Benji, this is a great question. Because like I was saying earlier, you haven't seen Sony go this aggressive with cross-gen for this long, like ever before, right? This is unheard of for them. I think it's a bit of a multi-part thing. First of all, that PS4 install base is so big, right? Much larger than PS3's ever was. So on one hand, you know, it was maybe a little bit easier to leave PS3 behind with PS4 because while it did eventually get a pretty big install base, that console internally was seen as a failure. Now, did they get to a better spot than they originally were? Oh yeah. But internally, that was seen as a bit of like a holy cow, this console performed way below what we thought, right? They were coming off the high of the PS2. So maybe that was a little bit more easy to just be like, listen, just put the thing to bed. Like, let's just get PS3 behind us and move on to a new generation. Whereas PS4 was an enormous success, right? So for that, you know, they love that console. It's going to be a little bit harder to abandon that. On the flip side, I do think there's an argument, Benji, that the PS5 install base isn't as big as they might have thought it was going to be, right? And the main thing that makes me think that is Gran Turismo 7. If that game truly was originally going to be PS5 only, and that has now shifted to PS4 as well, literally the only argument I can see for that is because of install base things, right? It's literally the only argument I can make. Otherwise, why wouldn't you just keep it PS5 only if your plan was PS5? So that's my guess. My guess is those two reasons. First of all, like I said, PS4, they just see that console as a huge success. It sells a ton of software still, and they just don't want to rush to leave that platform behind. And then also, maybe PS5, as big as it is, just isn't quite where they thought it would be yet. You know, we've had that massive semiconductor shortage that's really been the issue, right? It's not that the install base isn't where they wanted it to be because they can't sell consoles, like they're just sitting on shelves. As we know, that's not happening. They're maybe just not making as many as they think they could, right? And this is also a sign to me that they're seeing that this isn't going to improve anytime soon, right? If they thought that the semiconductor shortage was about to rapidly improve, maybe you would see Gran Turismo still stay PS5 only. But this says to me that they know well into next year this isn't going to be fixed. Dead Planet, funny comment here from before I get to the super chat, just because it was right above it and it's funny. Paul Mayhofer, anyone else realize it's Friday and just know that Matt Piscatella is enjoying a beautiful pizza today. Yeah, shout out to Matt. Shout out to Jeff Grubb. Those guys are always posting Friday pizza, right? Those dudes love to have their Friday pizzas. So shout out to Matt and shout out to Jeff. It is Pizza Friday. Dead Planet with a 2 super chat. Was Sony stuck between day one on PC or cross-gen? Oh, interesting, Dead Planet. So you're saying, were they in a scenario where like they basically had to choose one or the other, right? They either had to have some games be day one on PC or go cross-gen. I would say no, they weren't like stuck there. But I do think that they ran some internal figures and decided that, yeah, they needed to still support PS4, right? They're going to have way more access to data than any of us, right? Even those of us that feel like we are good at sales and good at forecasting and all that kind of stuff, we don't have near the amount of data that Sony internally does, right? Nobody does. Nobody, NPD, Europe charts, literally no one's going to have as much data on the inner workings of the PlayStation business as Sony themselves. So clearly Sony ran the figures and they thought, listen, we still need to support PS4 financially. So like Herman Holst said, Herman basically in that Q&A shot down day one PC like ever happening or anytime soon. Like if you read that Q&A, he basically commented that, you know, basically what they're doing right now is the strategy. Now you're going to see more games come to PC. He also basically confirmed that. But the way he worded it heavily implied console is still the place for day one launches. In fact, I think he even like specifically said that. So you're just not going to see day one on PC anytime soon. And that doesn't surprise me, right? I was basically always saying that on here. I think the way Sony sees their PC business is like a nice bonus, right? It's just like a nice extra for them. Whereas Microsoft is way more invested on PC games being like a big chunk for them. Sony still loves their console, and so does Xbox, right? I'm not saying Xbox doesn't, but Sony still sees their business primarily as a console business. And they're, of course, expanding into mobile and PC, but the core is that console. So I think you're going to always see that the PlayStation Studios games that go to PC, it's going to be that 2 or 3 years down the road, right? It's not going to be that day one. And yeah, cross-gen, they ran the numbers and it makes sense to them. Killian Butler with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Killian. Is that like your second 10? Holy cow. I think you and Benji both dropped 2 10s today. Thank you so much, guys. Do you think that Sony's cross-gen focus is related to maximizing profit as game budgets are increasing rather than PS5 production? Great point, Killian. Very good point. Remember Sean Layden's comments about short dev times / shorter games. Yeah, spot on, Killian. Here's one thing to keep in mind. It's easy to look at like the sales splits. Like, for example, Miles Morales, right? We basically know there's enough data out there. Miles Morales sold better on PlayStation 5 than it did on PlayStation 4. And that's with a much smaller install base. I expect fully Gran Turismo and Horizon Forbidden West to be the exact same. And why is the reason for that? Those people that are going out right now and buying PS5s as fast as possible, those are your most invested consumers, right? They are the type of people. I mean, if you're trying to rush out and buy a $500 or $400 machine, you're also the kind of person that's not necessarily scared of rushing out and buying a $60 game, right? There's a lot of overlap there. A lot of the people getting these consoles are those heavily invested day one consumers. So that's why you're seeing, even on a much smaller install base, a lot of these games shift more, at least at launch, on PlayStation 5 than PS4. However, even if you're only selling 20 to 30%, something like that on last gen, let's say you're doing a huge bulk of your business on PS5, 80%, 70%. When you're talking a huge game budget, when you're talking $100 million, there's games that cost that much nowadays. 20 to 30% of that, I mean, you're still talking, if you can get 20 to 30% back of that, you're still talking tens of millions of dollars, right? So as long as it's not costing you a fortune to also support the PS4, even if you're selling a smaller bulk of your units on PlayStation 4, that still goes a long way towards helping your overall giant budget. So Killian, yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. Games are not getting cheaper to make. They're not getting cheaper to make. And a big part of that is because consumers' demands continue to rise, right? Look at how intense people get online if a game has any sort of glitches. If a game doesn't have the most cutting edge graphics. If a game doesn't have incredible voice acting, right? People's demands, their expectations just keep going up. And in order to meet those expectations, you got to spend more and more and more money. So it's a great point, Killian. Yep, that definitely probably is a factor. Game budgets. Yep, great call out. Joseki, did you ever finish playing XCOM 1? Xenoblade Chronicles, I think you're saying. 1 and Xenoblade Chronicles 2. 2 is my GOAT. Joseki, I've actually held off. I haven't finished those. I actually haven't played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 at all yet, but I've played a chunk of Xenoblade Chronicles 1. But I kind of bounced off it. I'm strictly waiting now, Joseki, to see what Switch Pro is. If Switch Pro doesn't boost these games at all, I'm praying that they get some kind of patch to run a bit better. Who knows? Maybe they will run 0% better. I'm kind of waiting now, since we're so close to Switch Pro, to play many Switch games. Put it this way, Switch Pro comes out or it gets announced and there's not going to be any sort of updates for these, I'm going to jump on them really soon, because the rumors is that there's a new Xenoblade game of some sort coming somewhat soon. So Joseki, if there's no bonus for the Pro for these games, I'm going to play them over the summer. Yep, I'm going to 100% play them both this summer. But not yet, Joseki. Thank you. That's your second super chat. Thank you so much. Hamishly Ford saying, hey, what is up, Hamish? Venom Harness. Hey there, Benji. If Microsoft buys more developers and or publishers, how do you think PlayStation will react? They have much less money, so more third-party deals, or could they buy someone like Capcom? Venom, my perspective has been, and I think we have a lot of data to back this up. In fact, we literally just got some more examples of that, I think yesterday or the day before. I believe Sony's current plan, not inside information here, y'all, just watching what they're doing. I think their plan is to build their existing teams bigger than they've ever been and try to get most of these studios working on at least 2 games at once. Why do I believe that? Well, that's what they're doing. If you just look at their teams, they are hiring like crazy. They just announced Team Asobi is going to expand. Now, I know the flip side of that was they essentially killed Japan Studio, right? Japan Studio has been vastly shrunk. A lot of staff left. Team Asobi was kind of part of Japan Studio, like a small little team, but now they're building, like they said multiple times, Team Asobi is going to expand. They're going to get bigger. Basically, they're going to make bigger projects. So that's technically a brand new studio, right? Team Asobi was a team within another studio. Now it is literally its own studio. Then you look at Guerrilla has hired tons and tons and tons of new people. You look at Naughty Dog. They've hired tons and tons and tons of people. In fact, we already know Naughty Dog has multiple games in the works. That's not a secret. Jason Schreier himself even reported on it. They've got a remake coming of The Last of Us. They got Factions multiplayer on the way. And also apparently they have pre-production on a 3rd game. So Naughty Dog actually has like 3 projects in the works. You got Sucker Punch, who's hired a bunch of people, but I suspect they're on only the Ghost of Tsushima sequel currently. But you get what I'm getting at. Sony Santa Monica clearly is hiring for a 2nd game. They're not even hiding it. They're outright hiring for an unannounced game, and it's not God of War. So they've got a 2nd project in the works. Insomniac, we know, always has at least 2 games in the works. They've always got Ratchet, Spider-Man, etc. So the main way you're going to see Sony, I believe, combat this is making their own studios that they already have bigger and trying to get them on at least 2 games at a time. Not every team's going to be able to pull that off, right? So I'm not telling you every single Sony studio is going to have 2 games, but I think the ones that they feel like can do it, they're going to move to simultaneous game production. So that's going to be the main way. Do I expect Sony to go out and buy someone like Capcom? No. Do I expect them to buy Square Enix? No. I don't expect you will see Sony buy a single publisher. You never know. I just don't think they're going to do it. Will they possibly buy some devs? I could see it, right? I could see Housemart getting bought. I could see Bluepoint getting bought. But an actual full-on publisher, no. I think they're going to just buy maybe some select key developers, build their own teams bigger than they've ever been, and yeah, definitely third-party games, right? We've seen Sony is clearly locking up many third-party exclusives, so that too. But I don't expect a Capcom, Square Enix, anything like that. I don't expect them to buy a publisher, no. Benji asking what happened with the Switch Pro announcement. Did Nintendo change plans last minute? This is super weird. I don't have any inside information on this, y'all. But what people in the know at least are saying online is that it appears some devs thought it would have already happened. So this tells me, if this is true, right? I think you saw Eurogamer talking about this. If this is true, Benji, it tells me that, yeah, plans have changed. Listen, right now, right before E3, I think plans all over the place are shifting like crazy. I think very few things are locked in yet in terms of like the timing of these announcements. So there's so much news right now. Everyone's trying to find the right space, the right time. My hunch is that it is still going to be announced before E3. Keep in mind, we still have another week, right? This whole next week, it's still not E3 yet. We're coming up to it, right? This coming weekend, you're going to start to see the conferences pop off. But we still have the entire work week that's prior to E3. So they still do have time to announce it before E3. People in the know, more than me, seem to think it is still going to happen before E3. So... But yeah, looks like plans might have changed, right? Maybe they were going to go this week, but they decided to hold off for whatever reason, and now it's going to be next week. If it doesn't happen next week, I will be surprised, just because very reliable people like Bloomberg, like very reliable, said they thought it was going to happen. So yeah, if it doesn't happen here, that is going to be an interesting scenario. because by all accounts, it is 100% real and entering production next month. That seems to be almost zero debate. Like, it almost seems impossible that that information's wrong. The people that are coming out saying that are people that are literally known for this, right? You have Emily Rogers talking about it. You have Bloomberg, whose sources are literally the people building this machine. That's literally how they got information about this Switch Pro. Now, they also got some more information from developers, but their main source for this info is literally the people that are going to be manufacturing and putting it together. So that is at least locked in. Seemingly July is when production starts, so it needs to be announced soon, because otherwise it's going to leak, right? I mean, literally, it's going to leak. If they're building the machine, someone's going to leak it. So I suspect we're still going to get it before E3, but something might have changed. Yeah, something might have changed in terms of announcing timelines. Oh, 3 super chats came in. Let me hit those super chats. Thank you everyone so much, everyone, for all the super chats today. Thank you for the support you guys always give my channel. You're all amazing. The support on Twitter is unbelievable. I think I'm over 24,000 followers now. It's madness. Like, y'all, I can't tell you enough. I owe you guys so much. I'm going to really quick hit these super chats. This isn't going to be a long tangent, but I've mentioned it many times before. You guys have literally helped save my life and turn my life around, okay? I was one of those people that I feel like many people are, and I'm just saying this because I think some of you might be able to relate to this, and if so, I hope it helps. I was one of those people that felt very lost in life, right? In terms of, like, I didn't know what I was doing in life, right? I'm over 30 now, and I feel like I had made no progress. I was working just a retail job with no real direction, and I decided to just start coming out on Twitter and YouTube and talking about something I love, something that gave me like a purpose for the day. And wow, the support has been unbelievable. I haven't even been on Twitter for 3 years yet, and there's 24,000 followers. It's crazy. Thank you so much, everyone. It literally has helped change my life. Okay. KY Han with a 5 super chat. Basically, my message there is, y'all, if you have a passion and you feel lost, because I think a lot of people feel lost or uninspired, take the risk, right? Just try. I can't guarantee that, and it doesn't have to be games. It can be anything, right? It could literally be anything. I cannot promise you that you'll find success. I still work my retail job, right? In terms of like financially, nothing has changed for me other than these amazing super chats. That has definitely helped. There's zero question about that. But it's not like I like left my retail job behind and I'm just like this big famous person now, right? I'm just still the same guy. But it's given me direction. So I can't promise you you'll find success, but I can promise you if you at least try, you're at least giving yourself that opportunity to try and find a path in life. So I hope that helps. I'm speaking from experience here, y'all. Thank you. Okay. Sorry for the tangent. KY Han with a 5 super chat. Ironically, I think the smaller titles from Microsoft could win them this year. It's an interesting point, KY. I keep forgetting about how many smaller games they have. Psychonauts 2, The Ascent, Dark Tide, etc. It's easy to forget that Microsoft does have a ton of these smaller games on the way. And a lot of third-party ones. Now, Psychonauts 2 now is an internal first-party game, right? But, yeah, I don't know. I usually try to not look at things as like winning and losing too much. I get where you're coming from though. I kind of just try and look at like each as their own. Like I try to look at like, here's PlayStation and I look at them in a vacuum. Of course you're going to still compare, but like I'm saying, like, how is PlayStation doing as PlayStation? How's Xbox doing as Xbox? Nintendo isn't, you get what I'm getting at? So I don't really too much look at it like direct, like who's going to be better than the other. But it's very true, KY, that Microsoft is getting a bit undersold on some of the stuff they have coming because, frankly, a big part of it is because their AAA first-party games are just still years off. Like you said, it's more the smaller stuff. And then also because the front half of this year was so dry, right? Like it really was. I'm not trying to like bash Microsoft. I think even hardcore Microsoft fans would 100% agree. Like the first half of this year and even really since launch of the Series X and S, it's been so dry for big exclusives. Now, they've done a lot of things to help that, right? Game Pass, getting games on day one on Game Pass. But what I'm saying, KY, is, yeah, I think a lot of people forget, myself included, about some of these smaller games. And some of them definitely could hit. Psychonauts 2 could be really good. The Ascent, I think, looks awesome. Like, I'm very interested in The Ascent. And, yeah, it's true, KY. People are overlooking that. It's very true. Plastic Hearts Podcast with a 2 super chat. Thank you so much again, Plastic Hearts. Watching the Mayweather-Paul fight this weekend. Oh, man. I don't know. Probably. Don't worry. I won't spend long on this for people that aren't combat sports fans, but everyone that watches me regularly knows I literally love MMA and boxing. I will probably end up watching it because I'm a sucker. I don't expect this to be competitive at all. Listen, skill for skill, there's just no doubt, right? Mayweather's light years ahead of Logan Paul. It is also worth noting, though, Floyd Mayweather is much older than he used to be. He's also way smaller than Logan. If I was to make a prediction, of course I'm going to predict that Mayweather just lights him on fire, even with that size gap, because it's huge. The size difference between these two is enormous, both in frame and weight. Like, literally not even close. Logan is so much bigger than him. But of course, skills make fights. However, you do always have to throw in that weird wild card of when does your athleticism just go? I have been watching combat sports my entire life. Sometimes it happens almost overnight. Sometimes a guy looks amazing and literally his next fight, he does not look the same and he never looks the same again. As they say, Father Time is undefeated, right? Eventually, we all get old and we all slow down. So, if I'm predicting Mayweather makes this look like the easiest fight of all time and Logan doesn't touch him. But you always have to throw in the wild card. If Floyd suddenly looks old and slow, Logan is only 26, so he's going to have youth on his side, and he is massively bigger. So Logan's never going to outbox Floyd, but could he hurt him? A young prime Floyd? No, he would never hurt him. Logan would literally not be able to land a punch on prime Floyd Mayweather. We're talking about a guy that beat Canelo, okay? Now, it was a much younger Canelo, but it's still Canelo, okay? If young prime Mayweather, Logan wouldn't touch him. But if he's suddenly old and slow, you never know. He could get caught with some kind of weird haymaker and get hurt. It is possible. But my predictions, Floyd lights him up. Dead Planet here with a 5 super chat. I've been snake bitten by the hype bug. I love it. Good, Dead Planet. With Xbox's E3 the last few years, but I wonder, is there a real effort to downplay Microsoft's show this year? Feels like it. Dead Planet, that's a good point. You haven't seen Microsoft come out with the same wording that they sometimes have in the past, right? Like sometimes you see like Xbox just be so aggressive on their E3 wording, like almost ridiculously so, right? And I think they've caught a little bit of heat for that in the past, where it's like every year Microsoft says the same thing. Biggest E3 ever, best E3 ever, we're going to blow your mind. Like they do that like every single year. And oftentimes that has not lived up to people's expectations, right? So I agree, Dead Planet. I think you're seeing Microsoft be more conservative in their wording here. I don't think Microsoft's like outright like coming out and being like, oh, our show's going to suck, right? Like they still want you to be excited, but I think that this is the smarter move. Yeah. I would not come out and be saying things like greatest E3 ever unless you have like, you just know, like you're going to show some unbelievable stuff and a lot of it. Because when you set expectations super high, it's so much harder to meet them, right? Much easier for Microsoft to come in and be like, hey, we're going to have a great E3. We're going to have a great show. You know, I think you're going to see some games you really like. And if they over-deliver, suddenly you're like, dude, yeah, that was an amazing show, right? Like, they didn't come out and tell me this is the greatest thing that's ever going to happen in your life. They just said it's going to be a sweet E3 and sweet. Like, it's much easier to meet those expectations of just a good, solid show than when you're telling everyone it's the biggest thing ever. That, it's just like you're setting the bar so high, even if your show is great. I mean, it's going to be hard to meet that, right? Best E3 ever. It's a little hard. So I think they're being more cautious in their wording, and I think it's better. I think it's a better approach. Kind of on the flip side of Sony, we've been talking about how PlayStation's, messaging just hasn't been great. Do I think they've been like the worst thing ever? No, but I just don't feel like PlayStation's been like great in their messaging. They've been great in a lot of other fronts. It's just the one area where I feel like they haven't been the best. The one thing you can give Microsoft is I think the last year, really, like particularly the last year, they have really excelled in messaging. Like, you can knock Microsoft for other things. I myself do. I think they hopefully need to get these games, these studios rocking. They need to get more active releases. But specifically their messaging and marketing, they've been hitting home runs. Yeah, they've been doing a much better job this last year than I think I've ever seen in terms of strictly their messaging. All right. Cool. Super chats are clear. We got about, 20, 30 minutes left to chat. So I still got time to hit quite a few questions. I usually stream right around an hour and 15 to an hour and 30 minutes. That's kind of my go-to. Anything after that, I feel like we might be dragging it, right? I try to not do like a 2-hour stream. But there's so many questions, I also don't want to do really short streams. So that hour and 20, an hour and 30 feels perfect. So we're going to go for another 20, 30 minutes. But I might have to be a little selective on questions, just since we are in that final stretch. Ryan Thompson. Jeff Grubb believes Jeff Keighley will show off Elden Ring for Summer Games Fest. Yeah, I think he is. Jeff isn't the only one I've seen hint that Elden Ring is actually going to happen. So I think it is. So for anyone that missed this, the main reason Grubb didn't think that Elden Ring originally was going to be here was because he said that he's very confident it's not at Xbox's show. Apparently, though, Keighley's got it, which this is interesting. Am I completely shocked that Jeff locked in something as big as Elden Ring? No. Jeff Keighley has some major pull in the industry, right? I mean, people can feel however they want about him. Speaking of overhyping, a lot of people feel like Keighley can sometimes overhype his shows. I really like Jeff. But here's the thing. He has had some very big reveals before, right? At his various shows over the years. So am I shocked that he got Elden Ring? No, I'm really not. Like, Jeff does have some pull, especially as his shows keep getting bigger and bigger ratings, right? You see how huge the Game Awards has become. So I'm not super surprised on that. However, I'm a bit surprised it's not at the Xbox show, because apparently the word is that Xbox does have marketing rights here. So I wonder how that worked out. But yeah, it looks like we may finally really see Elden Ring. That last trailer that we saw was like, first of all, horrendous quality, and also was apparently not something intended to go to the public. Supposedly that was a trailer that was like being worked on as potentially going to the public, but it wasn't like a final thing. Like, this is a finished, polished product we're going to put out there. It was more just like them kind of making a trailer to see if they could get one spun up. And then of course they decided against it. So that was an older build. It was really terrible quality. Looks like we may finally really see Elden Ring. Literally one of the most hyped games there is that we know really still nothing about. So yeah, that could be hype. Maybe Jeff's show is going to be pretty impressive. If he has Elden Ring, hey man, he might have some big stuff. Sounds PP7. Sony Ben's new IP was confirmed open world. Yep. So what should be their key takeaways after Days Gone, and what kind of games would you like to see? Is it possible they reuse their horde system from Days Gone? Sounds PP7, great to see you. You're always here in chat. I kind of mentioned on Twitter, I'm one of those people that loved Days Gone. I know there's a lot of people that didn't, right? It was a pretty divisive game. But I really loved it. But to be clear, I played Days Gone quite a while after launch. So when I played Days Gone, it was really polished. Like, they had bug fixed a ton of stuff by the time I got to it. I didn't experience that many glitches. However, the main takeaways they need to take in terms of improvements for me, Silence PP7, is definitely on the technical side, right? That was really the biggest complaint Days Gone got early, right? Like, the main negativity around that game was that it was having crashes, tons of glitches. So that was the biggest game Bend had ever made. So I'm not like shocked the performance wasn't great. But now that they've done a game like that, their next one needs to be a lot more polished at launch. So they can't release it in the same state Days Gone launched at. In terms of like, I think they could do a bit better with some of the, maybe some of the like cutscene work and stuff. I didn't think the cutscenes were that bad. I didn't think that the writing was that bad. In fact, I really enjoyed it, right? Like I said, I love Days Gone. But, the reality is as a first party studio, you're going to be competing in terms of visibility with the Naughty Dogs, with the, Sony Santa Monica's. That bar internally at Sony is so high, the Spider-Mans, for like your cinematics and your stories. So of course that's an area that they could always improve on as well. The positives though, I think they did a great job of making their world feel like alive and dangerous, right? Like you said, the hordes and things like that. It felt like a really natural, like existing world. So that's a positive they can take away. My hunch is that it's going to play nothing, setting is going to be nothing like Days Gone. Probably not going to be post-apocalyptic. Definitely not zombies, right? I mean, they already did that and it got shot down. So I'm interested. My hunch is that the game is a lot different. But Herman Holstead is very excited about it. So that makes me excited. And I know there's a lot of talent at Bend. So I'm excited to see it. John asking, what games do I think Nintendo's going to show off? Zelda. Of course, there's going to be some other stuff too, but my hunch, the main thing at this Direct for E3 is going to be Zelda. I really think so, yeah. We've literally still seen essentially nothing. We've only seen one tiny trailer that had no gameplay, right? So it's got to be Zelda. Zelda's going to get a blowout this year, I think, for sure. I think you're going to see some sort of Metroid project. There's been a lot of rumors like an old school style Metroid is very close to release. I don't know if you see Metroid Prime 4, maybe, but I think you might see like a more old school style Metroid. There was all those rumors about a new Donkey Kong. Maybe you see that. Updates on Pokemon, of course. And, Shin Megami Tensei 5, right? Considering it all leaked, that should be there. But I think your main thing you're going to see from Nintendo is Zelda. I think that's going to be your main thing. Justin Tanhill, do you think Bethesda will show off Wolfenstein 3? Yes. Though when I was on the podcast with Colt was saying that he thought maybe, this wasn't him confirming it, he was just saying maybe he thought that maybe Wolfenstein 3 doesn't exist and maybe Indiana Jones is further along than we expect. That would be an interesting twist. I'm still going to assume Wolfenstein 3 is a thing because the first game did very well for them. The second game didn't perform great, I would say, but wasn't a bomb. It was just okay. But both games were overall well liked. I would think you'd at least want to finish that trilogy. So I'm still believing Wolfenstein 3 is real. Put it this way, Justin. If Wolfenstein 3 is real, I think it's definitely at this E3. If it's not if it's not at this E3, I'm inclined to think it's not happening because Wolfenstein 3 launched a long time, or Wolfenstein 2 was a long time ago. What was the date? Wasn't that 2017? Let me see here. Yo, that was October 2017. It's been almost 4 years. And yes, I know they had Youngblood in between there, but that was like a much smaller project, right? It was much, much smaller. If we don't see Wolfenstein 3 here at E3, I think that, yeah, that could be true. Maybe there is no Wolfenstein 3. Maybe we all assumed it would happen and it didn't, and that's why they announced Indiana Jones. It's possible. It is possible. But my hunch is we see it. Can be so many E3 conferences with so much info coming in just a few days. Do you think some announcements will get lost in the shuffle? Is Sony onto something by doing their own thing instead? To a degree, however, Ken, the main reason Sony doesn't do E3 is because they don't like the ESA. That's the real truth of it. The real truth of it is Sony, they don't like... There's clearly issues there. So, and they also, I think, feel like they're big enough they don't need E3, right? And with how much E3 costs to put on, they just feel like they're too big for E3. They're not the first publisher, by the way, to do this. You've seen ones in the past leave E3 and say, we don't need them. So, I don't think, though, because Sony always kind of stole E3, or at least during, like, the PS4 generation when they were there, right? Like, regardless, even though there is so many other announcements and conferences at E3, Sony kind of always was the one that stole the show. So I don't think it's necessarily so much like them themselves being lost. I just think they think they're too big for E3 and that they don't like the ESA. But will there be some announcements that get lost in the shuffle? Yep. If you're not a big giant, top dog like Sony or some of the Xbox stuff or Nintendo, there's always going to be that risk that some gets lost in the shuffle, right? I mean, for example, I was just reminded yesterday that Riders Republic is a game that exists. Nothing against Riders Republic. I think it looks cool, but you want to talk about, the kind of games that get announced at E3 and you just forget about. I was like, oh yeah, Riders Republic, that's a game. Like, you are always going to run into that whenever you're not one of the biggest AAAs. But I don't think that's the main reason Sony isn't at E3. I think it's just they don't like the ESA. Gary Sanchez asks a question. I kid you not, I was just thinking about maybe yesterday or the day before. Bethesda has great soundtracks with the Elder Scrolls, Doom, Fallout, etc. What do you expect Starfield's soundtrack to be like? And literally the reason why I was thinking of this wasn't even Bethesda's other games. It's because I'm playing through Mass Effect. I just finished Mass Effect 2, and I already did Mass Effect 1. I'm playing through the Legendary Edition. I've played them before. This isn't my first time, but I'm playing through the Legendary Edition. And I was thinking as I was playing, I was like, man, Mass Effect has some just great tracks too. And I was like, it made me think, I'm like, I wonder what Starfield sounds like compared to Mass Effect. Because Mass Effect kind of has this like sci-fi-y, at times almost electronic sounding, but also like big epic, especially in 2. And that was making me wonder, I'm like, I wonder what direction they go. I'll be honest, what I'm hoping for Starfield isn't necessarily a lot of like big stringed instruments and orchestras and things like that. Of course, I'd like to see a little bit of that. I'd love to see a lot of synth, a lot of electronic music. I'm not saying necessarily dance music, right? For people that don't listen to much electronic music, I'm not saying like blaring EDM while you're playing Starfield. But yeah, those spacey kind of synthy type vibes, that's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping for. Of course, you need to have some orchestrated, big epic sounding music. So I hope there is some of that. But yeah, I'd like to see a lot of electronic stuff. Just kind of goes with a sci-fi setting. JCat, hello. JCat saying hi. So great to see you, JCat. Thank you for being in chat. Thank you for being awesome and supportive and helping moderate and just rocking. Oh, Roberto was saying the volume's too low. I hope you guys can hear me. I apologize. That would be a bummer. That would be a bummer. Hopefully you guys have been able to hear me this chat. I'm assuming you have because the chat hasn't been at 0, but I'm just now seeing Roberto's comment that my volume's too low, and I apologize if so. Hopefully you guys have been able to hear me. Whoops. Oh, Split End had a super chat in here. Split End 89. Review score predictions / sales for Ratchet next week. I'm expecting Ratchet at worst to get very high 80s. So at worst, I'm expecting like an 87, an 88, and I think it has a legit shot at 90 plus. I know that's bold, right? That's bold. That's a high review score, especially because games nowadays don't get the same sort of high reviews they used to. Now, of course, they still get high reviews, right? Like, I'm not saying a lot of gaming publications still use primarily that like 7 to 10 review scale. But it used to be like there was almost like memes about it. Like it seemed like everything was 80 plus, right? You do see more games get 70s and 60s nowadays. So hitting 90 plus in particular has become more and more challenging. Very few games get 90 plus now. Like 90 plus is pretty freaking hard. So I'm not 100% sure it'll hit 90 plus, but at the very least, I can't see this below an 86. And I think it has a very good shot at 87, 88, 89. That's what I'm expecting. Very high reviews. Everything they've shown has looked extremely high quality. And then for sales, put it this way. I expect this game to be the best-selling Ratchet & Clank game of all time. Will it have the biggest launch ever? I'm still going to say probably, even on a somewhat limited PlayStation 5 install base, because no Ratchet & Clank game has had necessarily massive launches. The Ratchet game on PS4 was the biggest Ratchet launch ever. I think it can probably outdo that even on a smaller install base because people are so starved for those PS5 games, and Ratchet is the kind of game that's gotten huge marketing push. At the very least, I expect the best-selling lifetime Ratchet and Clank game ever, and a very good shot at the biggest launch, too, for that franchise. Yeah, very, very good shot. Very good shot. Okay, everyone's saying my volume's good. Cool, cool, cool. Awesome. I was going to be bummed. I was like, go figure, an hour into the stream, I realized, whoops, no one can hear me. That'd be great. Okay. We got 15 minutes. I got to pull just a few for the last 15. Red Dead series, what's up? Always so supportive in chat. Great to see you, Red Dead. This is a great question from JCat. Do you know why updated Game Pass numbers were not announced by Microsoft at their financial report or investor call? Will they announce them at E3? JCat, the only thing I can think is they just think investors don't care. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but there was not a single, and when I say not a single, not one question about anything to do with Xbox on the investor call. My hunch, JCat, is that Microsoft simply thought they had enough other stuff that they needed to talk about on the investors call that had nothing to do with Xbox, that their investors care more about. So I think that's why. I think we will get an announcement of their new subscriber news sometime, or numbers sometime this year. I definitely think we get them. The only reason I can think of that they didn't mention it there was, like I said, I guess they were just like, listen, investors just don't care. They didn't even ask about the Bethesda acquisition. And that was $7.5 billion. I'm not kidding. Not even one person on the call asked about the Bethesda purchase, let alone subscribers. So yeah, I guess they were just like, listen, we got enough other stuff to go over, teams, for example, and stuff like that. They're like, whatever, we don't really need to announce it. So E3 I could see, or whenever they hit the next big milestone, whatever milestone internally they have projected at. Yeah, we'll get something this year. You will get something this year. Logan Hardy asks, are you more hyped now for Horizon after all the new information? I already was, Logan. I'm one of those people that adored Zero Dawn. It is one of my favorite PlayStation 4 exclusives. Like, even above some of the other ones that people love. Is it my number one? No. That's a good question, actually, what my favorite PlayStation 4 exclusive was. Horizon's top 3. It's in there with me for God of War and Spidey, probably. Those are probably my top 3 off the top of my head. So I already loved Zero Dawn. So Forbidden West just locked me in as hyped as I already was. Like, I was already maximum hyped. Fisher's Net. Hey Benji, after seeing your Alan Wake gamer score today, I am sure you enjoyed the game very much. Yes, love it. What would you want first if you could choose Alan Wake / Control 2 or the TV show written by Lake, of course? So, really quick, Fisher's Net. Couple things. I am a massive Remedy fan. I adore Remedy. Alan Wake in particular and Control. Wow. Yes. So anyone, my gamer score is public. So is my PlayStation trophies. If you're ever curious, you can look at them. I'm just Benji-Sales on Xbox and Twitter. So I'm guessing that's how Fisher's Net saw them. It's all public. You can go check out my PlayStation or Xbox stuff if you're curious what I play. And yeah, I love Alan Wake. I cannot wait. Spoiler alert, cover your ears if you don't want to know. Alan Wake 2 is in development right now as we speak. Okay? This isn't me leaking information. It's just, it is, right? Grubb already mentioned it. We already knew about the game that's being published by Epic. That game is Alan Wake 2. So, apparently. So, spoiler alert, maximum hyped. I would love a TV show, of course. I would love Control 2, of course. Anything Remedy. Remedy is one of my favorite studios in the world. Like, I love their games. I love, like, weird stuff. I love, like, mind-bending stuff. And that's what Alan Wake is. That's what Control is. I'm a sucker for protagonists that go on long-winded exposition. I know some people don't like that, but I'm one of those people that likes a really wordy script, a lot of talking. Yeah, I mean, Remedy just makes the kind of games I love. Lorenzo with a good question. Do you think with the success of Spidey, Marvel will give more IPs to Sony? If they want them, yes. Given that things aren't going well with Avengers and Square Enix. Let's look and see what Guardians of the Galaxy looks like. I can't say too much about Guardians because I know some stuff about Guardians, actually. I think, and this is a guess, we'll have to see. I think people will be more happy with Guardians when they see it than they were Avengers. Okay, that's all I can say. I think. I think people, when they see Guardians of the Galaxy, are going to be like, I think they're going to have a better vibe. Put it that way. I'm not going to go too in depth, but I think, and we'll see, I could be radically wrong. Maybe when they show it, people will not like it. But I think Square Enix is possibly set up, you know, better for Guardians than they did with Avengers. That's all I'll say. We'll see. I mean, you're going to know very, very soon. Put it that way. Very soon. So, Square Enix, I think, might be able to rebound with Guardians. And then will Sony get more IPs from Marvel if they want them? For sure. After how massive of a success a Spider-Man was, trust me, if Sony approached Marvel and they were like, hey, we really want to make like a Black Panther game, or we really want to make a Doctor Strange game, or go down the list, there's a Thor, Iron Man. I mean, there's so many characters we still don't have games for. Trust me, Marvel would be down. After how big of a success Spidey was, yeah, they would definitely partner, for sure. The main question is, does Sony want to make more, right? They only have so many teams. Okay. Plastic Heart says, use those insider feelers to see if devs are cool across the board with having to develop on last-gen hardware, along with next-gen. I mean, I do get a chance to talk to devs sometimes. You know, y'all know I don't paint myself as an insider. Do I occasionally have inside information? Yes. Most of that I never share or even hint at. Because I don't build my brand on being an insider, and frankly, I don't do near the research required to be a legitimate insider. For every one thing you hear in the insider space, you're going to hear a fake, right? So you got to do the work to make sure you line up multiple sources saying the very same thing. So, but in terms of strictly cross-gen stuff, okay. All I can say, I will say one thing. I know one studio that is making a next-gen only game, right? Like the next generation. And I can tell you they are very happy about it, okay? Does that apply to everyone? No, right? I'm sure there's many, many teams that still love making cross-gen games, you know, supporting that. I'm just saying I know one particular developer who will remain unnamed making a next-gen only game that is very happy they don't have to deal with last-gen hardware. So I can say that, but it's just one, okay? That's just one. I'm sure there's plenty that are fine with it. All right, I think we had a last minute super chat, and then I'm going to grab like 2 more questions. So I'm going to hit this Timmer super chat, and then we're going to grab 2 more questions and then bounce. Super chat, 2, bounce. Timmer gets that super chat with a 5. Thank you so much, Timmer. It's your second one. Yo, Benji. ZeniMax Online Studios has put Commander Keen back on their website. Ooh, I guess we will see the game at E3. Good shout out, Timmer. Yeah, that completely disappeared, right? Right? Remember, didn't they officially announce a Commander Keen game and then we just never saw anything on it? Right? What? You can correct me here, Timmer. You are the person who knows ZeniMax and Bethesda. Like more than anyone I know. You know them. Right? I'm remembering correctly. They announced Commander Keen, and then we just never saw anything about it again. So that's interesting. Looks like it's still happening. Looks like it's still happening. Good shout out, Timber, and great find. Okay. 2 more questions, and I'm out. 2 more. So I'm going to just grab 2. I'm sorry for all the questions I'm going to miss. You know how it goes. We'll have another chat next week. Really quick, if you missed it, I'm going to do a live chat next week, probably Wednesday. Nothing after that, and probably none the next week because I'm on vacation. And, like, I won't even be at my house. Like, when I'm on vacation, I'm, like, gone. So, it's going to be hard to do a live chat. I won't have my computer. Okay. Grabbing. 2 more. Yeah, Dano here makes a good point. I'm wondering if and which games they'll announce for Game Pass for the rest of the month. They listed a few up until the 11th or 13th the other day. I'm curious if they have more coming this month. I think so. For anyone that missed this, Microsoft or Game Pass announced a much smaller slate of games than they typically do for the month. And yes, that end date is basically like right around E3 for the games they announced. So clearly you're going to see, I think, some big Game Pass announcements. What those are going to be, who knows? But the timing of all that, yeah. There's going to be some big Game Pass announcements for sure. There's definitely going to be at E3 for sure. Okay. I'm going to grab 1 more. Tom Matthew here. Any updates on the WB Games situation? No, other than we now have, they officially named that company Warner Brothers Discovery. I know, right? Real creative name. It's so creative. It's literally like the easiest, most simple name you could come up with. Or Warner Discovery, something like that. Essentially, it had one of the worst logos I've ever seen. So I'm sorry. And the incredibly rare chance that somebody here made that logo, which is almost 0, but it's not a good logo, okay? It looks like it was made super cheap and super fast. So, uncreative name, not a great logo. Other than that, there's really no update. I continue to believe that, WB Games probably isn't going to sell unless it's some kind of big giant deal. Like someone buys, like, all of WB Games and licensing or something like that. I just still feel like the fact they're making this whole other company, yes, it's set up easy to sell this company apparently, but I don't think we're going to see a situation where they're going to just like start dividing WB Games up and selling them to the highest bidder like individually. I just don't think so. I think they would have already done that. Frankly, if that was the plan, I think they would have already done it. So I think if WB Games gets sold, it's going to be a massive, giant purchase of everyone. And right now, I just don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Okay, I got to bounce there. Because we are at an hour and a half. And I'm out of time. All right. Oh, wait. Benji has a crying face at the very end. JCat gave a 3 super chat with a cute sticker of a... Is that a dog? Dog, or I think it's a dog. Being super cute. What is up, JCat? Thank you for the super chat. Benji has a crying face right at the very, very, very end. Benji, my question, please. Do you expect Grand Theft Auto 6 to be cross-gen? No. Nope. I don't think so. There's a main reason I think that. I think the soonest that game comes out is 2023. Ain't no way Grand Theft Auto 6 is this year or next year. By the time you hit 2023, that's a big install base, okay? 2023, next gen's going to have, and I say next gen, you know what I mean. The install base is going to be really big by 2023. And that game could even be 2024. 2023 is the soonest I think you see Grand Theft Auto 6, if not the year after. So it's going to come out so deep into this generation. I just don't see them doing cross-gen, especially because they have Grand Theft Auto 5 that's cross-gen, right? It's coming to these consoles too. I don't think so. I do believe Grand Theft Auto 6 will only be on these current consoles and PC, and that's only because if that game was coming out in 2022, it would be cross-gen, but it will not release before 2023. And like I said, it could be the year after. So it's going to come out so deep in this gen. No way. Okay, everyone, I hope you had fun. I love doing it. I literally love doing the chat. I love rocking. I love all the great questions. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We're so close to 3,000 subs. My goal originally was to get there by E3. Then I was thinking we weren't going to. Then I got a nice little boost of subs from going on Colt Eastwood's podcast, which was awesome. So we're so close. Subscribe if you're not already. Hit the like button if you like doing these chats. Helps the YouTube algorithm, helps people find my channel, etc., etc. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you for being amazing. I will 100% see you guys next week, probably by Wednesday, to do a live chat. After that's vacation. Stay safe, play some games, and I will see you all soon, either here on YouTube or on Twitter. Peace, everyone. Have a great day.